Should we just do the podcast while I'm eating ice cream?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
dude.
Let's do it.
Everyone's gonna hear you stuffing your
Mm.
face with ice cream.
What kind of ice cream is it?
Yeah,
Coffee.
that's what
It's
matters.
coffee ice cream.
Oh,
Coffee.
okay.
No, it's our freezer was broken when we first got here. So like the reason I knew is because I bought a big thing of coffee ice cream, and I went like an hour later and it was completely melted. I was so disappointed.
Yeah, that's a bad day right there.
And it just got fixed like 2 weeks ago, I think. This is the first time I bought ice cream since then. Man,
Damn.
nothing hits the spot, but kind of like coffee
Oh
ice cream.
my God.
Could
What?
you hear that?
Okay, I'm almost done, and then we'll get started. I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Got it. Let's do
We
it.
got it. Okay.
We got
Welcome everyone to I opened my notes to the wrong page podcast. Only the most professionals here. No, this podcast is actually called A Piece of Our Minds. It's a podcast about the creative process from the perspective of three amateur artists, creators, whatever. We're college age. We graduated high school like a year ago. We're friends in high school, and now we're trying to dive back into whatever creative arts fulfills us.
Go back to our creative roots.
Yes.
Yes.
So my name is Zander, as always, and I am joined by my two beautiful friends, Harley and Aaron.
Yes,
Yes.
I am beautiful, and I am Harley.
Yeah. I was like, are you gonna the audience already knows that you're beautiful.
Yes. And
Aaron,
then
do you want
Aaron.
to Aaron, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am other beautiful friend Aaron.
Okay.
I am friend Aaron.
I am
I
friend.
am friend Aaron.
Oh god. Oh wow. Okay, sorry. So as the people tuning in now understand, that's me flipping my page in case. I'm just last week, we did a special episode because Aaron was unavailable and we're still angry. So welcome back, Aaron.
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
We are no longer
Sorry.
angry because you're here. Because
Sorry, guys.
I had an episode ready to go, and I haven't looked at the notes in a while, and I just flipped open to them. And the icebreaker that I did, so the theme for this week is going to be crafting a story. So we're going to look at a lot about what a story is and how to like do that. At least from our amateur, we don't know what we're doing perspective.
Okay.
Oh, damn it. Let's go. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what that was, but okay. So the icebreaker I decided last week was, what is a story to you? Like, what is your personal definition of what a story is?
What a story is.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now I have.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I looked up the actual dictionary definition, which I will get to after I hear your guys' thoughts on this matter.
Well-
To me, this is interesting.
Mhm.
This is
Because like it
tough.
depends on like what kind of story you're trying to tell. Because
But
like
without like remove like the kind of story, but like what is a story at its core?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I guess what a story is to me, I think it's like a story is supposed to make you feel something,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's supposed to like strike something within you and allows you to connect with this piece of art. To me, like overall, like that's what a story is. It's just a way to connect with something, like whether it's like something that you learn or something that you feel. So I would say like that's what a story is to me.
Yeah. A story is supposed to really make you feel like Spider-Man. Really
yeah,
make you
my
feel like Batman.
my definition of story is gonna be way more shallow than what Aaron said.
No, Aaron, that was very beautifully put. So I'm very I want to say excited to hear what Harley has to say.
So like in my opinion, you take away like all the types of stories, and you just bring it down to the base concept. It's just a
simmer it
series.
down.
It's just a series of events being told by
Mm,
somebody
mm,
or something.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because I have some points to make on that. So a story to you is just like the progress of events.
Yeah.
I couldn't say that word. Okay.
Yeah.
So I looked up.
It's just yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Continue.
Okay. I will do so. Oh gosh, we're rusty at this. Okay. No, so I looked up, I think it was Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com. I don't remember. But I wrote down a story is an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment.
Mm.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. So it's like,
I mean, that makes sense, though.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing that I really stood out to me, because I read that, and then I started thinking about, I was like, okay, cool, but then there's the word plot too, and I was like, on one hand you have story, and on one hand you have plot. So I thought about it more, and the idea that I came up with, the distinction, is that I feel like the plot is like the series of events, like your 3 or 5 act structure, like this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. Like that's your plot structure. But
Yeah, I
that's not really,
agree.
yeah, that's not really the story that you're trying
No.
to tell. Like that's
Yeah.
just, that's what happens.
That's part of the story.
Yeah. The story, I feel, is how the characters or the world changes or stays the same throughout the plot.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Mhm.
that's, yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's
So yeah.
well put.
So I feel like whenever I'm thinking about like a story or like creating a story, I'm always like trying to figure out what are these characters, or more so now, like what I've been learning like throughout the process of writing the novel that I'm working on, that I went into more depth in last episode, is just who are these characters, what do they want, and how are they changing through these actions, and how are they especially like influencing the actions that are going on in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. No, to me, a story, like, in it of itself is just, it's so much emotion. Like, obviously some stories are more emotional than others, but I think, like, what really powers a story is emotion, like,
Definitely.
overall.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what makes you connect with
There,
this story. Yeah.
if there's no emotion, then you have no reason to tie into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The creator has to like make the person care about what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like the
Well,
emotions. Yeah.
And, like, to me, like, when someone wants to tell a particular story, like, that means something. Like, because if they feel passionate about it, your audience will feel that as well. Like, that'll be a good reflection, I feel like, too.
Yeah, and you can tell too if like the person
Mhm.
cares about it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Like you watch like I don't even have a good example. It's just like there's so many like you'll go see like a bad movie. Like I haven't seen it yet, but Artemis Fowl I heard is terrible. And I'm guessing it's because
Mhm.
these people they didn't really care about the source material or these characters or the like,
Which is wonderful source material, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am a very big
Artemis
fan of the
Fowl is
books.
very good.
It's very good.
See, and that's why they made the movies, because like they know that there's so many fans, but they didn't take like the passion and the effort into account to make it a good movie.
Yeah, because all I know about is that they changed, first and foremost, they changed Artemis's character from how he is in the books. Because in the books, he's like the ringleader of everything. But in the movie, he takes like a backseat to like his dad and like the elves and stuff. And that's not Artemis Fowl. That's not him. And that makes me not. Oh, did you not know that?
I didn't. That makes me so mad.
No, it looks really bad. I still want to watch it eventually because
he's supposed to be like the super genius boy.
No, he's this huge badass. He's this huge badass in the books, and then he's not in the movie, and it makes me mad.
It's just so sad.
It's so sad.
Anyway,
Sad boy hours on the podcast.
Anyway, what were we talking? Oh yeah, you can tell when someone's not putting the emotion and the effort into a story because it's going to be flat.
Yes.
It's going to be boring. You watch something
and
like
I'm trying not to do that with my story, and that's why it takes me so long to write like a section of it.
Yes, 100%.
Like the part that I wanted you to read, that took me like 30 minutes to write, and it's just one paragraph.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like I still need to read that. I will definitely do that right after this. But I was sitting there and thinking the other day, what decisions have they actually made throughout the course of this? And how has that affected what's happened next? And I've started to like pick it apart, and I'm like, there's kind of a semblance of that, but nothing super meaty there. So I'm definitely trying to steer more towards characters. Yes, towards meat. Towards the characters. I want meat in my story. I want the characters to be influencing what's going on more so than they are right now. And I think I am learning a lot, and right now, especially in the story.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting some cool parts.
That's good that you recognize that. Like, I think that's that's really good in like terms of your progression, in terms of storytelling and writing.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, and I've gotten past like a pretty, I think, as like early as I am into my story, like the part that I just got done is, I think it's one of the more like important parts to the story. Just like building, like how it builds up the characters just a little bit. Just two of the characters, just the interaction between the two of them, but it builds them up a little bit, I think. And so it's definitely a part that I took a long time on, just because I wanted to get it right. And so it took me a couple sessions to actually get the entire part done.
Oh yeah. And that's fine. Like, as long those things need time to like kind of like broil and simmer a little bit in your head.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I guess we already kind of went into a little bit of what we did over the past 2 weeks, I guess, since the last actual episode. So yeah, I already mentioned a few of my notes, going over the purpose of these characters. I'm like, why does Imera exist? Because like, I just kind of threw her in, so I really need to invent backwards, kind of like who she is. Which is interesting. And I think I'm doing a much better job than I was. And also making sure that the events in the story are driven by the characters and not by just the plot, like dragging the characters along. I feel like that's super important. To make sure the characters are driving the plot and the plot's not driving the characters, which you can't work both ways, but like, I feel it's a much more compelling thing if you can like empathize with these characters, and then they're driving what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think, establishing good characters and characters that have purpose is what really feels a great story overall. So
I definitely agree with what you said about like you want the characters to drive the plot, because like I think if the characters get themselves into situations instead of situations just being thrown at them, it's much more interesting, because then I feel like it affects them much more. It affects the characters a lot more.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That was such like an intense definitely.
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 It was a very definitely, you could say.
I'm not
that was a good one. That was a good one. I thought that was a good one.
That was so good. Like, that actually blew my mind. Like, I was like, wow, that actually works.
Okay, so it was so good. That I broke
It was so
Aaron.
good that it just wasn't funny.
I think this is the last episode of the A Piece of Our Minds podcast, everyone.
Oh wait,
I'm gonna go get
he's
another.
back out.
Wow.
He's
I'm gonna
back.
go get another bowl of ice cream and just
There
cry
he's
this
back.
one out.
That was crazy.
That was fun. Harley, you already mentioned a little bit of what you did this week, but anything
Yes.
else that you felt was cool or noteworthy
Um,
that you noticed?
Well, I looked back at like the stuff I'd already written, and I made some edits just because like some of the ways that I described some of the stuff happening didn't really sit well with me when I went back and reread it, and I was like, I need to change this because it's not really how I would want that character to react to that. And then, of course, I got done with the big section with Jackie and Lane. So that was wild. I really liked the interaction between those two already, and I already kind of set up a little underlying subplot there between those two.
Nice.
So a little bit of a
Underlying
love story going on now. So
That's what we like to hear.
We'll see how we'll see where this goes.
That's great.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, fleshing out the rest of the world, doing that stuff, editing, which is something we haven't talked about, and I do a lot, especially when I figure out that I come up with something like something about the magic system that is a lot more interesting than what I already had. And I'm like, I need to go back and change all of this. It's super important to be able to acknowledge that and be like, this could be a lot better. I'm gonna go fix that.
Lucky enough for me, I don't have like a very complex system behind my story.
Yeah. Which is, I'm sure, very nice.
It's very nice.
Unlike
No, Zander, like, how frustrating is that for you to like go back and have to change like aspects of your story like that?
It's so frustrating that I've basically been like, I'll do it later at this point. Like, if I come up with, because there's this entire,
as long as you do it,
there's this entire thing that I came up with called the Curse of the Twilight that I think I briefly mentioned in the special episode. That it's something that I don't want to deal with in this world anymore. Like, it's not gonna like, it's something that like right now exists and like is gonna be a big problem for me, like writing here on out.
It's just there, but you don't want to do anything with it.
And I used it to explain something that happened in like the second chapter or like the second section. But now I kind of just want to explain it with something else and just get rid of it. But no, it's very, when you hit that moment of like this thing that I've been thinking about, that I thought about for a long time and spent like a lot of time explaining and fleshing out, when you hit that moment that you're like, this isn't good, or this isn't going to serve any important purpose throughout the rest of the story, and you just need to sit down and just trash all of it. It's more heartbreaking than frustrating, because you're like, I put time into this, I put thought into this. I could have been doing something else.
Yeah, well, like, unfortunately, like, you know, it's kind of the price you have to pay in that situation.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things that comes with making like a much more elaborate story, like with what you're doing, is that you're gonna have ideas that make more sense than what you have, and so that's the price. That's one of the other prices you have to pay, is just like, once you figure something out that works so much better than what you had before, then it's just like, I have to try and make this as good as I can, and so you have to go back and change it.
It's but it's cool sometimes. So the part that I'm at right now in my writing is probably near like pretty much the end of Act 1 of this 3-act story. And So I remember outside of one of these, I explained to you guys the entire like plot that I had set up, and
Yep.
already things went off the rails, just just
Oh
because
no.
like I was sitting there writing, and I was like, oh, what if this happened? And I was like, oh, what if this happened? And
Oh man.
there was two little twists that I did not plan to happen, and then they did, and I had this entire thing set up that kind of doesn't matter anymore.
No.
Yeah. It's still no, it's still gonna
Yeah.
like serve its purpose, and like the point is that it doesn't matter anymore. Like it's gonna come up later, but yeah, it's just there's that whole thing of like just going with the flow when you're writing a novel. I have no idea if that's a good strategy for like a professional novelist, but for me as an amateur novelist, it's very fun. And has led to a
Yeah.
lot of cool stuff that I would not have thought of just sitting there and thinking about the plot.
And
Yeah, no.
see, the thing with what, because like you had like a brief like outline of like where you wanted it to go with your novel, but like I don't know what you're planning, if like you're planning on like writing it in like a series of different books or not, because like with mine, that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing, is making it like a short series of books. And
See,
I'm like, because like I don't know at all how the story of Lane is gonna finish. I've got no clue. All I have is like a brief ending of like how I want like this first section to end, like this first
Yeah.
book. And I'm like, I have that. I'll figure the rest out eventually. And so it's just like,
I think that's great. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I
Anyone
like
else's
that too.
opinion? I don't know. But I really like that.
No, I like that too.
I don't want a a professional author coming and commenting like this is the worst planning I've ever heard.
Yeah, like if like I don't even know, like Stephen King or like a Rick Riordan type is like reading this podcast, listening to this podcast, and chimes into
like, what is
Apple
this?
Podcast reviews, and it's just like, you're not doing this.
Yeah,
right.
they're just trashing.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares about Stephen King?
Wow.
Who cares?
Let's take that back for a second.
Let's take that back before he comes in.
Before he comes to knocking.
Yeah.
Writes a horror novel about an amateur podcaster named Zander getting murdered by a clown or whatever.
Based on true events.
Based on true events. Like, let me tell you about the time that I committed manslaughter. Like,
isn't that just the Mercedes man? Isn't that what it is?
Spoilers for a Stephen King novel that's probably like 40 years old.
Yeah, that so many people have already read.
I don't think it's one of his older books. I think it's a newer one.
I don't know, man. I didn't read it.
I didn't read it either.
Clearly.
I just read the thing on the inside of the cover, like a brief outline of this intro to the story.
Okay. So you read like you read the synopsis of
I was gonna say the
all I know is that a dude ran over a bunch of people in a Mercedes. And that's it. And there's a cop after him.
Man, Stephen King.
What a legend.
I have never read any of his books, but when you just say the plot like straight up, like does not sound compelling.
Just say the plot of it.
Clown man kills boys.
Yeah, clown goes after children.
Yeah.
Alien clown kills children in small Maine town.
I think you could just cut it off.
Turtle.
I think you just cut it off. Demon alien clown, and then cut and sell. Like
that's it.
Yeah.
Kills children, fights turtle.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
That's his next book. Is Demon Alien Clown.
This summer.
I just want Stephen King's novel titles to get more and more like elaborate and long.
Yeah, what was the most recent Stephen King novel? Let me look.
We're gonna look this
Yeah.
up real quick.
I'm looking this up real quick. Stephen King. Okay. No, I don't want his movies. I want his books.
He made movies?
Well,
he produced like some
Oh.
of the like.
Okay. No, it seems like a lot of his novel. If we're gonna write a Stephen King novel, you do the and then a noun. or a verb in the case of The Stand.
Or just one noun. It.
Or a year. Or a date for like that JFK one. Yeah, 11/22/63. Gerald's Game. The Dark Half, The Long Walk, Long Walk of the Dark Tower. The Running. He wrote The Running Man? Oh my god.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I've just seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Which I'm sure is much more fun than the book is.
I don't know, man.
That is a good movie. I feel like we've gotten very off topic.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is that time.
All right, let's
God.
reel it back in.
Oh,
All right,
sorry.
Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron,
what have
did
you done these past 2 weeks?
If you mention Stephen King, I'm gonna cry.
I will not mention Stephen King.
Thank you.
So I've been busy these past 2 weeks, but I've been trying to study and watch as many movies as I possibly can. Really, I guess what I've been doing is I've been trying to study like director techniques, from like all types of different directors. And to be honest with you guys, at the end of the day, like the directing techniques that you go with depends on who you are as a person. Like, yeah, you can do similar things to like a certain director and how they go about their business. But like when you're the director, like it's kind of like how like the set goes and how everything else goes in terms of like the story, the plot, and the movie itself. Like it's kind of based off of your personality and like how you work with the actors and how you engage with the story. So it was interesting to me, but I also got to learn more about like the history of filmmaking through that, which was really interesting. And then fortunately I was able to watch a couple movies over the past 2 weeks. I watched Annihilation, which that story is like, I don't know why, but after I watched that movie, I just like I felt uncomfortable. Like it was a good movie, but I just felt uncomfortable just with the way it went and everything.
No, I've also seen Annihilation, and I can agree with that.
Yeah, no, it just makes you feel uncomfortable.
That's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But it's such a like interesting.
Is that the one with Natalie Portman?
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but I know it has Natalie Portman.
I watched it like a year ago. I just remember it being weird.
Yeah, it was just so weird. But like the way they did it was like, I mean, I didn't have like a problem with the film or anything. Like it was just so weird.
Yeah.
But
like I wish I would have seen that like more recently. Cause like I remember really enjoying kind of the story behind it, but I don't remember like anything that happened or what the story really was.
You just know that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just remember I remember sitting there at the end and being like, I could follow like what it was trying to say. Did I understand what was happening? No.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, no, like, and like towards the end, like when it gets even like it just gets weirder as the film goes on, and like towards the end, I was like, oh my god, like I seriously feel like I need to like really think about what's going on in my head right now, because this is just becoming too much. But yeah, no. Let's see. The other movie I watched was Frost / Nixon. It just came out on Netflix. I think last week or something. That was an interesting film, the way they did it. They basically, so like obviously like they have like the plot and the storyline and everything, but they also made it kind of like a documentary style
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
this interview between Nixon and Frost.
Hmm.
But it was really, I thought it was cool like that they went with a documentary kind of style ish. Like it wasn't shot like a documentary. It focused more on the storyline, I would say, but that was an interesting story. And I thought it was cool, like to get more of an understanding, I guess,
Yeah, this
from
does look
that perspective.
interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, and then the other movie, the last movie I watched was called Cairo Station, and that just came out on Netflix.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard of that.
It's
Mm.
it's an older film, came out in 1958, but it's all in Egyptian.
Oh.
Um, and it's a short movie. It's only like an hour and 13 minutes, but it was just like it's like psychologically like following the main character. I was like, wow, this is like really interesting. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
spoil anything, but
Mhm.
it was just like cool to see the psychological progression throughout the movie. And it takes place in one day, which is what
Oh.
makes the
Oh.
psychological process like even crazier, because it's like how can someone do that in literally one day?
Mhm.
Is it like a
But
falling down uh type of story?
yeah, yeah,
I
that's exactly
love
what
that.
it
I
is.
love Falling Down.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Have you
yeah,
ever
no.
seen that movie,
I
Zander?
I have not. No, let me.
So Falling Down is just a businessman, and it's just his story of just having a really bad day.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
it's a great movie. He
Huh.
like he, he like there's I like so many like unintentionally just hilarious parts where like
Mhm.
he like beats up a guy who like tries to stab him with like a butterfly knife, and then he's like trying to figure out how the knife works.
Mhm. Mhm.
He's like, how the heck did he do that? And
Oh
then he
my
like
god.
he's almost like he almost becomes like a victim of like a drive-by shooting, but then they crash their car and he takes
Jeez.
their gun from them,
Yeah.
and then he goes to try and get like breakfast from McDonald's. and there's not, and it's not breakfast time, so and even though the breakfast menu's still up, they're not serving breakfast, and he like shoots the ceiling and he's like, I just want breakfast. He's just
Dude, that
Oh.
that scene is so good, like when
it's
he's trying
such
to get breakfast.
it's he's like,
Yeah,
but
that's
like it's so
that's like the
weird,
first picture that comes up.
like he's because he's like calm the entire movie,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it's just like
It's just like him
you
escalating. Like,
you can just tell that there's something like not right. Because
oh,
this dude's
that's
just because it's
hmm,
like the most restrained rage you've ever seen.
Yeah.
that's interesting. So it's like kind of like a character study almost of just this guy having a bad day.
Yeah, and like
Yeah, pretty much.
you learn
Mhm.
about his life like later in the story
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
like his past,
Hmm.
and it's
Like,
just like it's a great movie. I
Yeah.
love
yeah.
it, and it all happens in one day. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like kind of like, I guess, to like cycle back to our original conversation about story. Like that sounds really interesting. Just it sounds very driven by Michael Douglas. Is this Michael Douglas? Am I getting him confused? Yeah, it's Michael
Yeah.
Douglas.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
Michael Douglas.
I always get him confused with someone else, and I don't remember it. Anyway, it sounds a lot like him and his ever worsening mental state is completely driving what's going on,
Hmm.
even though like
Yeah.
some of it is out of
Definitely.
his control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the story is definitely fueled
Mhm.
by that character.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like and to Harley's point, like even though like there's like he has all this rage, like this isn't like your everyday bad day kind
Mhm.
of like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anger.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's
done in the
literally,
most intense
yeah.
way
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, you see like it's not like just anger built up from one day. It's like
Mhm.
just weeks, if not years
Okay.
of anger that's built up
Yeah,
in this guy.
you can feel
And
that
then
history there.
And this
Yeah.
is the day that he finally snaps.
Okay.
But then he keeps on being at the wrong place at the wrong time and just gets in all these bad situations.
Yeah, it's literally the worst timing. It's
Like
just
he
it's so
he almost gets robbed and
Oh.
stabbed, and almost gets shot, but he
This sound-
just like, but then he always gets out of it.
wow. This sounds like almost Killing Joke-esque, kind
It's
of.
it's so good.
you know,
I
it's definitely
definitely
an
That's
interesting
interesting.
concept.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that sounds interesting. I guess I can kind of tie that into one of the questions I had prepped for our. This is kind of the third act of the podcast. No, so yeah, it's really interesting because that's a super simple concept, but it just I'm sure like the human aspect of it and like it's just the amped up craziness of just having a bad day and like all that focus on this character who's clearly not okay for a while is super compelling. So
Mhm.
I feel like that kind of poses the question, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what do you feel makes or breaks a compelling story that's really going to connect with someone?
The characters.
Mm.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's definitely the
It's gotta be the
characters.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having that
You gotta
breathable.
have if you're gonna build a good story, you gotta have compelling characters.
Yeah. Now you can have a great storyline, but like if you want to really establish like a next level kind of story, you also have to have the
Because
characters.
like you can have a great storyline and all that, but like if you don't have like a character that the audience can get behind or go against, then it's just kind of pointless because
Yeah.
then they're just like watching a documentary.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's not really.
And
It's
no
not.
one likes documentaries.
I like documentaries.
No, thank you. That was sarcasm, Harley.
Wow.
Right over his head. Okay. No, to build off of that, I feel like the characters are definitely like the baseline. Like you got to get good characters. But on top of that, you got to put that character or characters in a situation or with other characters that's really gonna
Change them or
yeah really
not
get
change them.
it's gonna
Character development.
yeah it's gonna
Yeah.
put them in a situation with other characters where their actions are gonna show you who this person really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why character foils are so important for like
Yeah.
the straight man and like the crazy guy, like not great weird guy, just having some sort of dynamic like that. There are
Yeah.
fireworks going on outside. I'm sorry if you can hear that.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
I'm sure we've had a couple of times where a train has gone by. So
True. I was gonna say true, or should I say choo choo?
Oh my God.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
We're ending it there, right?
Are we? Yeah,
Really?
sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God. No, I think that's fantastic.
Oh my God.
Wow.
One quick question. Do you think something can be good without a well-crafted story? Like,
It,
like do you think there can be? Do you think something can have art can have value without a story?
You know what? Like, I think, well, because if you have a really bad like story, but like, let's say there's like a really, really good character, it's just, everything
Mhm.
else is bad about the
Mhm.
situation. Like, like that can still be iconic to people, and that can still be memorable.
True.
So
Yeah.
I guess I like would have to say yes, like
Mhm.
just for that reason. But it's not very often.
What I think of is like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mhm.
Because like that's like kind of like the story is supposed to be that of like the Manson family, like the Manson family murders, and like an alternate timeline of that.
Yeah.
But like you don't really pick that up like at all
Yeah.
in the story.
No.
Yeah.
It's such an
And so
underlying concept. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that entire movie is just driven by the great characters played by Brad Pitt,
Mhm.
Leonardo DiCaprio,
Margot Robbie.
Margot
Margot
Robbie.
Robbie. I don't know
Oh,
why I
that.
forgot her name. Because
Um,
like I was like waiting as I'm watching. As I was watching that movie. I'm like, I'm waiting for like the conflict to come in and stuff,
mhm.
and I'm like, who's going to be going against these
Yeah.
Yeah,
characters? And I'm like,
yeah,
there's nothing like that really there.
yeah, yeah. The movie
Like
really
it's really
just.
it's like there's a little bit of that like internal struggle, but of like with like
Mhm,
DiCaprio, and that's
mhm,
about
mhm.
it. But like, there's really no like actual put together story.
Yeah, it's kind of just like meandering for a while.
Yeah,
Well, and
and then the Manson family comes
Yeah, and
in.
the thing that's compelling about it really is like the performances, the characters, the writing, and like I don't know what I just said. Tarantino's unique style.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I almost
no,
said. Never mind. Okay.
yeah, no, no. Like to your point, like, Tarantino, like, I mean, that was obviously super intentional,
yeah,
but I think it's because he wanted to like set up the ending for this great big finale and
Mm-hmm.
like have the entire audience just be like, "What did I just see? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
what just happened here?"
Mhm.
Because like there
So
really isn't like a build up to it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It just
It
kind of
just
happens.
it just happens, and it's great. I loved that
Hmm.
movie. But like, there's not really a story that builds up to the climax. The climax just happens.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
I think that with even without like a well put together story, or like a story at all, it can
Mhm.
still be good if you have very compelling characters
yeah,
and like very good dynamic between the
Mhm.
characters and such.
yeah.
And maybe that can be the story. And I think that's where I will go into food for thought. A little bit of that, this, a little bit of that. Anyway, I guess to Aaron's looking at me weird. Uh,
Oh my god.
I love how we try and get like these super like
Mm.
deep endings on each of the podcasts, and it just
Dude, this
and
happens.
then we just start laughing.
This
Yeah.
happens. This happens every time. Like Xander will say something like poetic.
Yeah, like if you guys were wondering how serious we are, we are not.
We're oh my god.
If we were serious, we would have taken Xander's deep ending and been like, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
like
we
you know,
don't.
but we're not.
we would have been like, "Well put, Xander. Well put," and
No.
we would have
And
moved
no,
on.
I take the bit too far. Anyway, just to wrap up. So when you're crafting a story, the characters and crafting the characters and making sure that their input really, really matters and their decision matters, and putting them in a scenario and with other people that their decisions will really matter to the plot. That is what makes a compelling story. An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment, because
Or you
that's what
can
a
just or
story
you can
is
just
all
have one
about.
character, like
Yeah,
that one Tom Hardy movie.
yeah. Or falling down, and you could have tied back to something in the that was in the episode, Harley.
Yeah.
What?
Instead of bringing up you could have had good narrative flow if you would have brought up something we already talked about. But
See, we're
Sorry.
already critiquing our own
yeah,
podcast. Oh my god.
welcome to the.
Whoops.
That's a piece of my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what
Man.
crafting a story is. There's a little bit of food for thought if you're trying to come up with a good story for something. Really focus on those characters. Focus on the
Yeah.
plot. The plot is important.
Yeah.
Build those characters, build those moments and those decisions that the characters are ultimately gonna have to make.
Yes.
Yeah. So as always, thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart, from Aaron's heart, and Harley's heart. For listening, for listening to this podcast.
Maybe not Harley.
Maybe not.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah. If you want to reach out to us and tell us about any of this, reach out to us on social media. All of our ats for Instagram and Twitter are in the description of every single one of these episodes. We would really appreciate it if you gave us follow and maybe like told us what you thought. If you're listening. which
Yes.
if you're hearing this, you must be, which means you found it somewhere, which
Which
congratulations.
Means you watched you listened to the entire episode.
Yeah, you're
So,
listening to the end of the episode. You are an
And
MVP.
we really appreciate that.
Yeah. But if you're looking for more places, or your friends are like, I only listen to podcasts on a radio public because I'm that guy. Everyone has that one guy in their friend group. No, so we're available on Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Finally. Very happy. Yeah.
It's about
so
time.
happy about that. We might actually post the Zoom call for this one. I was thinking.
Oh.
Yeah, mayhaps
Wow.
on our YouTube channel, Lettuce Rock Productions. So subscribing
I should have lit up my room if we were going to do that.
It's fine. No, we'll just this will be a test one. I'll put a little thingy about that. No, so subscribing to Lettuce Rock Productions is probably the best way to support us. We're trying to grow that. We're gonna come up with a lot more short films and ideas for stuff to put on that channel and just really help us grow. That'll be great. So thank you very much if you've done that already. If not, just like mosey on over there. hit that little button.
Yeah.
So, and also this podcast is weekly, so tune in next Monday at noon Central Time. Yes. For the next episode of this podcast. We don't know what it'll be about yet.
We'll figure it out.
We will figure it out.
We'll figure it out. As always, I love each and every one of you in a very sensual way.
What?
in a very loving way. I love all of you in a loving way for listening.
Yes.
And I deeply mean that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Yes, thank you all once again for letting us give you a piece of our minds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is such a good ending.
Look at us go.
I didn't come up with it. And I'm mad.
I'm the smart guy.
So mad.
Zander didn't get to finish it off with some poetic phrase or something.
Which is always my specialty.
My specialty.
I'm upset.
It's my special shame.
It's my special.
Are we keeping this in?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100. Especially now that you said it.